How do you choose what business to start? That's what we're going to cover in this video. This is Mike Cooch with Leverage and Services That Scale, and I am shooting this video because one, this is a question that I get asked pretty often on my office hours calls in particular. Get new entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs that are trying to determine between a handful of different business ideas that they have, which business they should start. And then number two, unfortunately, I see a good number of entrepreneurs who have gotten started in a business without having really gone through a thoughtful process of determining if that is the business that they should have started. And then they get into it, they've already made some investment, they've invested some time, some money, and then they realize, uh-oh, they've made a mistake. Or I realize they've made a mistake and they maybe haven't realized it yet, but it's pretty obvious from somebody who's looking from an outside perspective with some experience that they probably could have benefited from a more thoughtful approach before they started that particular business. So I want to give you a process and some resources that I have learned and developed over the years here based on my experience as an entrepreneur who, like many of you, I'm sure, has a million ideas going through their head. You know, I see opportunities all the time, and the number of businesses that I have considered starting, I have actually started, or I have gone through some sort of process of considering and then, you know, ultimately taken off the table or postponed indefinitely is long. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and I have a lot of different interests, and I have had to learn to develop a process and a set of criteria that can help me evaluate different ideas and determine, hey, is this something that I should be getting into? And so I'm going to share with you here, and I've got some resources for you at the end of this video as well to share with you to help you evaluate business ideas as they come across your table as well, okay? Okay, the first thing that you want to do in evaluating potential businesses to start is you want to get really clear on the primary reason why you're starting this business in the first place. I've got 4 different reasons why here that you can see: passion, purpose, profit, and personal gain or lifestyle. These are very different reasons, and it's not to say that they have to be just one. You can, of course, start a business for multiple reasons why, a combination of these reasons. But whatever your reason why is going to determine or should determine a lot about the particular business that you choose and business model that you choose, as well as things like, are you going to raise money for it? Are you going to have partners in it? Are you going to get investors in it? Things like that should be determined largely based on the type of business that you are building in terms of the reason why. Okay, so as an example, a passion business. You may start a business just because you're absolutely in love with something. I love to play guitar. I just want to spend all day playing guitar. I want to teach other people how to play guitar. It's my passion, music. That can be an awesome thing for you as an individual to do. That can give you a lot of satisfaction and could earn you a decent living if done well. But it's a horrible idea for somebody to invest in, right? To get outside capital from an investor for that business is probably a terrible business. It's not scalable. It's not a really high potential business in terms of economics. And so if you're going to start that business, you want to be really thoughtful about, okay, I've got to make sure and do this in a way that I can be really careful with my money, manage my overhead, so that even if this business doesn't make me a lot of money, I can still do it and enjoy doing it and be able to at least support the life that I need outside of playing guitar, right? So that's a passion reason for starting a business. Next is purpose. You hear about these businesses that start and they have what they call the double bottom line. So one bottom line is profit, but the other bottom line is that there is some sort of maybe social mission or purpose behind the business. Tom's Shoes is a really famous one in this regard, right? Because he would give away a pair of shoes for every pair that he sold, because the greater purpose of the business was to make sure that kids around the world had shoes on their feet, because there's an alarming, astonishing number of kids around the world that don't have shoes on their feet, and it causes all kinds of problems. So that business, while it is a business to be run as a profitable business so that it can survive in the world, right? It's not just a charity. It also clearly is giving away a lot of what could be profits in the form of those second pairs of shoes that it's giving to people. So again, if your business is around a purpose like that, well then being very clear about what that purpose is, being very clear about how you're going to use funds in the business to pursue that purpose and what sacrifices the business may make to accomplish that purpose is really, really important when it comes to getting other people involved, potentially taking investment money, things like that, because people need to be really clear about what that's all about. Next is for profit, okay? And this is perhaps the oldest reason for starting a business and maybe the most traditional reason for starting a business. And I refer to profit not just in terms of bottom line, but also could be just profit for investors, which could come from just the gain of the valuation of the business and then ultimately the sell of the business or going public, even if the business is not yet profitable. This is, again, the businesses that typically are being started with the specific purpose of profiting. There may not be a greater sense of purpose behind it. There may not be a real personal passion behind what's being done. It's really being opportunistic about making money. And there's a lot of investors out there that want to put money into ideas like that. So a business that is really focused on profit tends to be a very good business for getting outside capital and being run in a very disciplined way, as opposed to a business that maybe for passion, maybe doesn't have that same kind of discipline. And then finally is personal gain or lifestyle. This is, of course, a major reason why in today's world, why people are starting businesses, particularly online businesses, is because they see the benefit of being able to create their own income and have a business that's online so that they can travel and have flexibility and freedom. Again, just because you're building your business for your personal gain and lifestyle doesn't mean that it's not a business that you want to have profit as well. It's just, what is the primary reason? The primary reason. That's really important to get very clear on, because if the primary reason is personal gain and lifestyle, you may sacrifice some profits to make sure that you're getting the lifestyle that you want. Versus if the primary reason is profit and you go raise a bunch of money from VCs, guess what? You are probably going to have to sacrifice some of your personal gain and lifestyle for a while to make sure that you're accomplishing that primary reason why. So get really clear on why you're starting the business and make sure that you're being really honest with yourself about what that means and what kind of sacrifices you may have to make, so that when you go out there and evaluate the specific business opportunities, you'll be able to have a clear set of criteria to evaluate on based on your primary reason why. Okay, step number 2 now is you actually have to evaluate the potential of the business. Okay, again, if you're like me, you've probably got 10 different business ideas at any one time circulating around in your head. You need to be able to evaluate one versus the other in terms of potential. Okay, one of the things that I have learned over the years is that not all businesses are created equal. Okay, some business models are just better than others. Okay, Wall Street in the 1980s made a tremendous number of idiots really rich. And I don't mean that to disparage the people that were working on Wall Street in the 80s, but the reality is, you've seen some of those stories of Wall Street in the 80s and the people with the drug habits and the crazy lifestyles and stuff like that, they were just in the right business at the right time. I mean, at no time in history of the world has more money flowed into a particular business model and just made a lot of people wealthy. All you had to do really was just be there and be in the game, and you did very well. That's an incredible business model. Software is an incredible business model. Running a restaurant is a very tough business model, right? So you want to evaluate the potential of the business using some good, solid business evaluation criteria. I love this book, The STAR Principle. It is a thin little paper book. It won't take you long to read it all. And it's not overly academic, but it gives you some really solid criteria to be able to evaluate, does this business have what it takes to be what he refers to as a star business, the kind of business that really takes off and has great growth, great profitability, and great potential to build valuation so that you could eventually exit the business for a lot of money. So I recommend this book for, again, the more business side of evaluating the business, okay? You're gonna get some of the more rigorous, kind of disciplined ways of evaluating a business out of this book. And then the second way that I recommend that you evaluate the potential of the business, you may have seen this before, it's been very popular here in recent years, this ikigai, I believe is how you say it. I could be butchering that, I don't know. But it's this balance between passion and practical, okay? You have undoubtedly heard the stories of people who started a business because they were passionate about something, but then they went broke, or the people who create a business, and this is just as common actually. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who do this, who create a business, and it's a business that they actually make money at, but they hate the business, and they spend years of their life building the business, and they're absolutely miserable and have to try and find a way out. Again, I've seen just as many people do that as I've seen people, build these passion businesses that never really turned into anything. So this gives you this kind of formula that, again, if the STAR Principle book is a little bit more of the more technical ways of evaluating a business, I think that this gives you a little bit more of the personal way, a little bit of the softer way of evaluating a business, but I do think is important, right? You can see here the big circles on the outside, what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. The challenge I have with this formula is that you can start a really, really good business that isn't necessarily anything that you love or that you have to have any personal skills that you're good at or that you can personally be paid for, right? This tends to be a framework that is very just you-centric, like it's just you starting a business and the business is just going to be just you. That doesn't have to be the case, right? Most good businesses are not just a single individual, and they're not just based on that single individual's talents or skills or knowledge. They're based on products and services that there ends up being a team around, and there's a market need and a market that will pay for those products and services regardless of the individual who's behind them. So I think that this does, though, have a good kind of balance. It brings kind of a good balance to some of more of those technical evaluation steps that you're going to do in the STAR Principle to just add another layer of evaluation when you're looking at a handful of different businesses and trying to make a decision to just kind of, add some balance to that evaluation. Like there's one thing that, yeah, this looks like it could grow like crazy and make a lot of money, but is it something that I feel like I even will enjoy? This is, again, kind of that softer side of evaluating the business that I think does have a lot of benefit to doing it. Okay, third, this is critical, is determining your level of commitment to this business and to a particular business idea. And there's a handful of questions that I recommend that you ask yourself. First, can you do this for 10 years? Can you commit, if you're gonna start this business, to doing it for 10 years? Why 10 years? Because the reality is it's probably going to take, my experience is somewhere between 7 and 10 years before that business has reached a point where it's really successful, if everything goes right, where it's really successful and you can get out of that business, or you can build a strong enough team around you that for all intents and purposes, you can get out of the business on a day-to-day basis, okay? If this is something that you're thinking, I could do this for a couple of years, I could do this for a few years, and then I have to be rich, I would recommend that you don't start that business because that's just not the way it works most of the time, okay? So can you do this for 10 years? Second, can you get the resources? Okay, there are some incredible business ideas that I think would be very high potential to pursue that I probably can't get the resources to pursue those businesses. And I'm a big believer in, you can do just about anything, all right? But the reality is I would have to make some sacrifices. I would have to change some things about my life to make an all-out pursuit to get those resources, okay? If you're Elon Musk and you want to start the next Tesla, you've got this idea in your head of some major product like that you could potentially start that company and manufacture some revolutionary new product. You can do it, right? I mean, Elon Musk has proved that you can do pretty much anything. But if you're going to do that, it's going to require, in his case, hundreds of millions of dollars where it was sunk into that business before he ever even had a car to sell. He went from being incredibly wealthy to being on his last dime before he turned that company into generating some revenue and getting some additional capital for it so that he could actually survive and keep on operating. So can you get the resources, and are you really committed and willing to do whatever it takes to get the resources to start a particular business? If you're starting a restaurant, that might be a few $100,000. If you're starting an online business, that could be $1,000. So the resources required can be really, really different. Are you willing to make the necessary investments? So it's one thing, again, if it's a business where you need to go out and get a lot of resources, it's another thing to consider, hey, you personally are going to have to put in some money into this, or you are personally going to have to spend the next 6 months or a year of your life working on this, maybe without pay. Are you willing to make those necessary investments? And then finally, are you willing to get experience first? This is, I think, one of those really, really important questions to determine how serious somebody is about a particular business. I know for me personally, this is one of the biggest mistakes I feel like I made earlier in my career, is that I didn't have the patience to go out and get experience in a particular industry, just to pursue that business idea. So I think in most cases, one of the most valuable things that you could possibly do if you said, hey, I really want to get started in the restaurant business, okay? Some of us have that mindset of, well, I'm just gonna go open a restaurant. I think for most people, in most cases, the smartest thing to do would be, hey, I'm gonna go find an entrepreneur in the restaurant industry that I can get work underneath them and just study everything about how they do things, how they operate, trying to ask questions, trying to learn everything I can. I'm gonna do that for the next 2-3 years, whatever it is, so that I have the skills, I have the knowledge, I have the experience that when I go and start, I'm gonna have the best shot at success. That takes patience, that takes commitment. Okay, patience is not always the strong suit of entrepreneurs, but I find it's an incredibly important one. And if you are really, really committed to a particular business and really being successful in that business, you probably should be willing to invest the time to get some experience first to give yourself the best chance at success. All right? So 3, determine your level of commitment. Okay, step number 4 here, the final step. This is one that has been so valuable for me, and you can see over here on the right. This is my personal criteria for businesses that I'll build and run. This is a document that I created over the years where I realized, man, I have so many different ideas, so many different opportunities. And many of those ideas and opportunities actually are great ones on paper, right? They meet all the technical criteria of a really good business opportunity. They can grow really quickly, have great margins, generate a lot of profitability, have strong brands. But what I realized is that does not necessarily mean that they are good businesses for me. And what I mean by that is that for me personally, I have made the decision, you can see here, rule number 1 in this document, and I will share with you a copy of this document and a little bit of video to go along with it to help you in developing your own. So I think it's one of the most valuable things I've ever done. You can see rule number 1, I am less concerned about building a company to be a gazillion-dollar public company than I am about building businesses that allow me to live an ideal life and that maximize my potential and impact. This should be considered at all times. That's rule number one for me. Okay, that is rule number one. I used to live in Silicon Valley, and rule number one back then was, can this thing go public? Can I raise a bunch of venture capital? Now I have zero interest in that being rule number one. I'm not saying that I would never do a business that could accomplish those things, but it's not rule number one. Okay, this is rule number one. So when I'm looking at these different business opportunities, I ask questions that like, will it make the kind of money that I want to make? Will it give me the lifestyle that I want? Okay, online businesses give me an awesome lifestyle. If I invest in starting a restaurant and I'm going to be tied to that restaurant every day and I can't travel and I can't have flexible hours, that would be a big mistake for me because I love to travel and I love flexible hours. So can it give me the lifestyle that I want? And then three, do I fit with the nature of the work? And what I mean by that is that when you start a business, there is primary work that you are most likely going to have to do as an entrepreneur for years to get that business going, okay? I work with a lot of people in the agency business, and I see a lot of people that get started in that business, and then it becomes clear that they don't like to sell. They're not energized by selling. If you don't like to sell, if you won't do what it takes to get your foot in the door with prospects and get sales conversations going, you're gonna really, really struggle in that business. In today's world, if you won't create content in that business to get the word out about who you are and to show that you're a thought leader, you're gonna have a really hard time in that business. If you start a restaurant, but you don't like all of the people interaction, right? And you don't like having to manage people, well, then the nature of that work is not a really good fit for you. So being really honest with yourself about the things that you personally get energized and excited about and you have the patience to see through is really, really important. So again, I will share with you this document. I'll put a link here where you can get a copy of this document, and I'll walk you through the process of some things to consider in creating your own. All right, those are 4 steps to determine the right business for you to start. Not all businesses are created equal. Not all ideas are opportunities, and not all opportunities are the right ones for you. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, you really need to think through these 4 steps to determine the right business for you before you make that leap. If you put some thought into it, it doesn't have to take that long, but you put some thought into it, you're going to have a much greater chance at success in building a good, healthy business, but also a much greater chance at success at building a business that is healthy and good for you as well. All right, this is Mike Cooch with Leverage. I hope that this was helpful for you. Please make sure, like the video, comment down below. I respond to all of them personally. Share this with another entrepreneur that you think would get some value out of it, and please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.